Hello, Martha. Hello, digital streaming world, YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Welcome to the Saturday morning coffee and tea, story time and Q&A. Just going to allow for some time for people to join and sign in. On the YouTube, I can't see whether people are attending. And on Facebook, I can see. So no point in getting into what's going on too much until there's a little bit of an audience. So just kill some time a little bit. Got my mug. It says "Born to Ride." Everyone see that? Get up close. Look, there it is. There it is. Oh yes, it's a good mug. It holds a lot of drink. You can have a big hot drink. This mug. Cozy clothes, mason jar full of water. All the cool kids drink out of mason jars. What are you all drinking? Anybody putting a little Jack Daniels in your coffee, maybe? A little Irish cream? No? A little bit? Okay. I got an extra warmer. I made it early. Wanted to make sure to have good warm coffee. So how's the week been for people? Did it drag on? Did it go by quickly? A little bit of both? Were you able to get some yoga in, or a little exercise, walk, do some calisthenics, a little qigong, any of that? I didn't do qigong, but I did some walks and a bike ride or two, and all my classes were very good, and it was really nice to see lots and lots of nice friends and relatives, people from around the country and even in other parts of the world. So that was cool. Hey Rich, what's up? You got your coffee? So it's like the old SNL. Remember the old SNL bit with Mike Myers? Coffee talk? It's the California version, you know. We talk about yoga, the elephants in the room, you know, no big whoop. I got a few laughs from that. That's good. So I'll just go over what the schedule's been like for me, and feel free to make some requests for next week or mention something that you experienced this week. Could be about life, but preferably you're talking about yoga. But I'm loving the schedule. I love being able to make my own schedule. So like as a yoga teacher, you have an ideal schedule in mind and you work towards creating that, but it takes a lot of time. You know, you don't just roll into the yoga studio and say, hey, you know, sliced bread? Well, I'm even better than that. So give me any schedule, give me any class I want, because I like 5:30 classes and 10:30 classes. And yeah, I want 10 classes. I just moved to town and I'm the shit and I need to make a living. Like that doesn't happen. It'd be nice if it did, but yeah, that doesn't happen. You have to wait. You get on the sub list and you wait. And then the studios or gyms say, hey, we have an opening. Are you available? And sometimes it's the exact time slot you want, and other times I'm like, well, 7:30 at night, it's not really my thing, but I need a gig. A gig's a gig, so you take that. But with the online platform, you know, right away I was like, I can just do morning classes the same time just across the board. And then that's really good for sort of branding and developing an audience, you know. And then I was like, so I started by getting morning classes canceled. I still had night classes, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start a mornings class schedule online, and then eventually all my classes are canceled, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do night classes too. So came up with the Monday through Friday 10:30, and then the Monday through Thursday 6 p.m. And then the first week, people were mentioning how much they like restorative. And I was like, yeah, it's nice to do that on Sunday, do like gentle flow, restorative, you know. And so pretty quickly came up with doing that, like halfway through the first week at 6 p.m. So it's great. Like all of my classes are, you know, in this congruent time frame, 10:30 in the morning, 6 p.m. at night, and mostly like every day. And then there's on Thursday night, I finish my night class schedule for the week until Sunday. And Friday morning, I finish the morning class schedule for the week. And I have all the different types of classes in yoga that I like to teach. And I got to choose that. You know, I mean, a lot of it was based in what my regular schedule was already, but then a lot of it was just based on what I thought would be a good schedule for the community. So I chose Monday morning, a hatha yoga class, Wednesday a gentle yoga class, Friday a hatha yoga class. And I used to have Tuesday, Thursday vinyasa classes, but I gave those up because they weren't doing well. But and those were at 9:30. But then I was like, well, I'll do a 10:30 flow class, and so that's my schedule Monday through Fridays. Hatha flow, and then vinyasa yoga, gentle yoga restorative, vinyasa again, and then hatha flow, all at 10:30. And then at night, I do something different. I do the core conditioning classes on Monday and Wednesday, and those are the classes I normally do at Pacific Edge, which is one of the main places that I teach. And those are super fun because whereas I'm a yoga teacher and I prefer yoga, um, you know, I equate it to like having like a sport that you're really into. Like you surf like 6 days a week, and then one day a week you go mountain biking. Mountain biking is not your favorite thing, but you really enjoy it because it's different than your favorite thing that you're doing all the time. So to me, that's like what the core conditioning is, and I can teach stretches. I can get people to stretch and get focused and relaxed, but it's accessible to people who might not normally come into a yoga class, and maybe then eventually they will get into that, or even if not, like I don't really care whether, you know, if people take care of their bodies, you know, exercise that includes flexibility, then I'm happy, you know. People take care of their bodies, whether it's doing yoga or qigong or doing, you know, different athletics. It's way better than just being sedentary and not doing anything. So, you know, in the yoga community, a lot there's been some people who are super into fitness and they're not ashamed of it, but there's a lot of people who, you know, they speak in a tone about classes that are like more of a workout. You know, although that class is really popular, it's more of a workout. You know, and I've been there myself, critiquing that. You know, and it's like, sure, it's, you know, if something's meant to be really meditative and slow and this, that, or the other, and it's got like poppy music and it's really exercisey and not exactly very zen or meditative, then, you know, it's on the table for critique. I think everything should be open to critique, but also what's wrong with the workout? Like if you look at health statistics of people, you know, who are healthy, people who work out are healthier than people who never work out. So it's like yoga is a workout. Like why is that bad? You know, I mean, ultimately. I mean, there's a lot of little arguments of breaking tradition and, this, that, or the other. And I understand that. But like, working out is better than not working out, whether you call it yoga or qigong or core conditioning, going to the gym, this, that, or the other. Like, it's way better than not doing anything with your body, which a lot of people do. So, but I understand. For me, I want yoga to be a little bit more centered, focused, and Zen-like, and the core conditioning, the playlist, and to do these things that I typically don't allow myself to do in yoga, and also not call it yoga. It's just like it is what it is. But anyhow, truthfully, and I love the core conditioning classes. I've been loving all the classes, and I love the fact that I have a full range, something for everybody in the schedule, and you don't always get to design that. Studio says, hey, we got a restorative opening, or we got a vinyasa opening. You want to teach it, and you either say yes or no. In this platform, I can just choose exactly what I'm teaching. Like, I'm going to do a workshop next weekend, and I'm going to choose exactly what I'm going to teach. Although it's going to be an open forum, so you can ask questions. I'll have a topic, but then there'll be questions within the topic that you'll inform what I talk about. So we're going to do that next Saturday. I was possibly going to do that today, but I figured it'd be better to build it up a little bit throughout the week and just more talk about what the topic is going to be and why I'm choosing that topic, and then do it a week from now. And people have more time to carve out some time to check in for that and be, you can watch it after the fact. All these videos are saved, but the nice thing about the workshop is it'll be interactive. I'll get my fiance to read your questions out loud, and then I can answer them and demo stuff about the alignments and the poses that are relevant to that. Yeah, so I've been loving the schedule, loving all the classes. I have 2 of every kind, and there's something for everyone. And the ones that I've really enjoyed are the Tuesday and Thursday night ones, the deep hatha yoga. They definitely make your muscles strong. It's not what people would call a workout. It's the kind of class that makes your face feel warm. Like, you feel really warm, but you don't really sweat unless you're like an easy sweater or you got the temperature turned up. I mean, if we did these practices where we're doing, deeper holds and standing poses, and the strengthening comes more from holding, than doing a lot of sun salutes. We usually do like 1. If you were to do it in the summertime and it's humid, you'd sweat a lot. But in the apartment and you've got the heat and high 60s, low 70s, like, you just feel really warm, but you're definitely saying hello to all the muscles, and then you can get into some deep openings, super grounding, and I'm really digging it, and dig the night class vibes, and people have given a lot of good feedback on that too. And we always focus on the spine, but mainly we do some really big openings with the hips, and a lot of different types of straddles, and that's really nice to get deep in the hips. So that's been really nice. And rather than worrying about whether the class is going to be big or small, or whether it's going to succeed on the schedule or this, that, or the other, I'm just teaching, and I don't get in my head over, I have classes that have big turnout and some that have medium and some that have small. I've had a lot of small turnout classes in the history of my career. And sometimes you worry about what students think, like, oh, is this not that great a class because there's only like 3 people here, and you can still get in the zone and teach a really great class and not let that affect you, but it's a hurdle that you have to get over, versus when you show up and there's 15 enthusiastic students that are happy to see you, then you're already got momentum, you're already there. So in this type of platform, like, that's just not something I'm thinking about. Like, I teach, the way I teach. And then later I see if people came and if I made any money, but like when I start, I'm just very focused on what I'm doing. And, I definitely miss the people, miss my friends, and miss meeting new people. But there's a lot less distractions for me, which is really nice. If you start the program late, if you're taking the class and you come in a few minutes late, you do what you do. If in real life, people come in late, they bullwhip their mat. That's very distracting for me. Like it distracts what I'm trying to teach in the moment, and it also irritates me because it's disrespectful. And and then that's another hurdle I have to get over to get back into my zone and do a good job teaching. Versus, the closest equivalent to that I've experienced now is having technical difficulties happen, and we've been able to iron those out, and figure that out. So things have been running very smoothly in terms of using the devices and running the live vids. And I'm very grateful for everyone who's joined. And I've been enjoying it a lot. It's been very uplifting for me, and it's a difficult time for everybody and for me as well. And it's been really nice just to keep that consistent teaching going, even if not a lot of people are attending some of the classes, and a lot of people are, I keep it going. It's like being a musician. You just keep putting your guitar on and keep playing your songs, whether it's just singing to the trees or Madison Square Garden. You just got to keep jamming, and that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps me going anyway. But anyway, I'm kind of just riffing and doing some story time, but you're welcome to ask questions. I'm sitting close enough to see the questions on Facebook Live. On YouTube Live, I don't know how to take live questions. Sorry about that if you're watching on YouTube Live. You can always email me questions if you go to gabrielbenjaminyoga.com. You can get my email. You can email me questions, but I can't answer them live. But on Facebook, if you have any live questions, I can see this. Next week, we're going to do an alignment workshop focusing on different movements of the hips, the hip socket, and the different poses that those affect, which they're hip opening poses, but also the hips affect the back a lot. So there's going to be, poses for opening up your back as well as opening up the hips. And I'll be further away and I won't be able to see questions like I can now. But I'll have a reader read the questions and let me know. So, and you can hear your question being read out loud. I'm just going to close this little thing here. So that's going to be really cool. So the sign me up for the workshop next Saturday. Yeah, just don't overstretch the hips. Yeah, you can choose to do some of the poses. It's not going to really flow though. It's going to be talking, and then I'll demo some poses, and then talk about that and answer the questions, and then back and forth like that. So it's not really designed to be practice to, but you can if you want, but it's not necessarily the ideal way to practice. But if you warm up before and you're not injured, then it's nice. It's nice to get some poses in. And I've always said, it is good to practice the ideal way, but it's good to just practice, period, even if it's not the ideal. In fact, if you're only ever practicing when everything's ideal, you're going to practice a lot less. And you're going to notice the difference between that versus getting in those daily stretches, even if it's noisy, or even if you're wearing your sneakers and jeans, even if you haven't the perfect empty stomach and the perfect yoga atmosphere. You want to take some deep breaths and you want to do a couple little stretches. Even just sitting cross-legged. If you have a padded chair or you're in a booth somewhere and it's padded, and you can slip off your sandals and sit cross-legged at lunch, and your knees and your hips get a little stretch in, like just doing that compared to nothing is huge. So yeah, you'll be welcome to do that, but you're also probably best off just taking notes and learning or typing in questions. Um, so we're going to talk about the hips. There's 6 directions of movement in the hips. So there's adduction, abduction, internal rotation, external rotation, extension, and flexion of the hip. And so we'll go over poses of all that. So when we talk about open hips, we think of like specific things, but usually you have one opening or two that are really good. Sometimes you have all of the openings that are really good, and sometimes all of them are tight. But usually you have like a direction or two that's not that bad, even if you're tight, and then other directions that are much tighter. So having open hips is relative. You do one really open looking pose, and people are like, "Wow, look at those hips! You're really open in your hips." And but you may not be, not completely. Um, for the longest time, the butterfly, when you have your feet together and the knees open, for me that was a very tight pose, like my knees were very high. But I could do Hanuman asana, where you do a full flexion and extension of the hips. So if you looked at me in the split pose, what we call Hanuman asana in yoga, you'd be like, wow, open hips, look at that. But then in butterfly, it's like, ah. and and guess which one I worked on a lot. I worked on the Hanuman a lot, and the butterfly, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna skip that one today. And eventually I did. Eventually I switched, and then it came around. But it's nice to have open hips, and it's nice to have hips open relatively equal in all the directions. When you're really open in one direction and really tight in another, the body typically doesn't really enjoy that. So, a lot of times we work on the things that we're like natural at, like, oh, my back bend's really good. So today I'm going to do a bunch of back bends, and it's like, well, you're already good at that. Maybe you should do something that you need a little bit more work on, definitely not skip the stuff that you're good at, skip the stuff you enjoy, because that gives you motivation and that's fun, and that keeps you practicing. So that's a good thing. But, it's good to work on your weaknesses. And for me, the hips had definitely been a weakness for a long time. And for me, the hips and the hip alignment, like in your back bends, your femurs are in an alignment. Usually we're trying to keep them neutral, and a lot of times they open out, and that kind of crunches your back. So that's going to be part of what we're going to do. My story in terms of the sacrum and the hips is before I became a yoga teacher, um, but I was having injuries in my back, and particularly in my sacrum. And even though I'd had different accidents on my bike, like I recovered from those pretty well. When I started to feel pain, I hadn't had a recent crash, um, but I was overtraining. I was going on really hard rides of big gears, and at the time, the popular gearing at the time was huge compared to what it is now. And even like the best cyclists in the world who can spin a faster gear that's bigger than someone who's not nearly as fit, they still use really low gears compared to at the time. And I didn't know any better, so I had these big gears on my bike, and I was doing roads like Fremont's Peak and Mount Madonna that have a lot of 10, 12, even 15, 17% grade, which if you're not familiar with what that means, it's very steep, right? So you're grinding on the pedals, and that doesn't just fatigue your back or fatigue your legs. It destroys your back unless you have, really, really good genetics and you have a lot of resilience. So I destroyed my back pushing big gears, and also I favored my right leg. Right? So eventually I noticed I always would take that first step out of the saddle, which has a big amount of torque on it with my right leg. And then, oh, it's my right side. And that SI joint was just fused. It was just stuck so hard. And it would just hurt when I walked. And it hurt when I rode too, but it hurt the most when I walked. And I did all the wrong things. I kept overtraining and I tried to stretch it out. I did all these forward bend stretches, glute stretches, and those were good, but I didn't do any toning for the back. I didn't do any extension, and I didn't know about alignment. And I didn't take easy days on my bike until I just couldn't ride, until I was just so injured that I was broken. And I remember when I was 19, my dad watching me, walk across the lawn so slowly, just like wincing in pain, limping. And he's just like, Gabriel, you look like an old man. You're walking like an 85-year-old. No disrespect to 85-year-olds. A lot of old people can move better than me at the time. And I felt like an old man. I felt like I was just ruined. And so learning poses that help release the sacrum and doing more internal rotation. In yoga, I think we do a lot of external rotation and not as much internal. And the internal rotation, I think, is good for stuck SI joints. Learning about that was key. So I was doing some yoga, but I was not teaching, and I wasn't set on teaching. But I got, encouraged to do a weekend teacher training. It wasn't a full 200-hour, but it was a weekend basics training, and a lot of in that method of yoga, a lot of the basics was toning up the back, laying down, doing one leg lifts like half locust, doing the easy cobra, doing basic locusts. And I never liked those poses in the beginning of doing yoga. I was like, those make my back muscles contract, and I'm doing sports. My muscles are strong already, and I don't want to contract my muscles. I want to stretch. But my back didn't have stability, and it was always in this rounded shape. Like when you ride a road bike, you're in this rounded shape with your neck out, and you're just there for hours. So, you do back bends, you bring in muscle tone that you don't normally have compared to doing an activity like that. And I hated them. Like cobra, like that's not a good stretch. I like that stretch for my glutes, or I like that hamstring stretch we do, and that feels good. But like cobra sucks, locust sucks. That was my attitude. And then I did those more, and that was a big part of the training. And I also worked with a chiropractor who was really great. And he told me, he said, you do enough yoga, you're not going to come visit me that much. And so my back got better. And then I also had the ability to substitute. I wasn't certified, but back then, and this was 19 years ago, back then, if you had done any amount of training, at least in the community I was in, people would ask you to sub, and you could substitute. So I started substituting classes, and then lo and behold, some people liked me, and they offered me a regular gig, and I had a regular gig at a gym. And actually, the very, very first teaching I was doing was at a bike shop for free, just a cyclist, completely informal. Completely informal. And they're like, oh, hey, this stretch is good for tight legs. Let's do this. Okay. And then everyone did that. And which if you're new to teaching, or if you're thinking about becoming a teacher, that very low pressure, informal, like not even structured, just like, here, let me show you 5 stretches. Like that's so good, just to build that very first stepping stone towards putting together a little bit more of a structured class that's a little bit more formal, that you start to make a little bit more intricate and a little bit more fancy. And then eventually you can get to that level of the teachers you admire. I think a lot of times people, they try and go from graduating their teacher training to putting on a class like the teacher they admire, and skipping all those steps where the teacher has a good sequence, a good story, a good personality, they're relaxed, they're not nervous, and you're none of those things when you're an unqualified teacher. And I say that just because you have a certification, like you don't really become a teacher until you've taught for a while. You know, it's teaching that teaches you how to teach, even though the trainings are very good. Like you really cut your teeth by getting out there and just putting yourself in the fire and teaching. At least for me, I learned the most from teaching, and I learned a lot from the trainings. But you really learn, you learn by doing. You know. So anyway, so that's the beginning of my teaching, doing very informal teaching in the bike shop and coming from a place of limping and feeling debilitated and pathetic. Um, and that was a really good thing. I didn't realize it at the time. I was like, okay, I still want to be a pro cyclist, and yoga's cool, but like, it's my side thing. It's what I'm doing to fund my racing habit, pay for bicycle tires and stuff. And then eventually I was just not into being competitive, even though I still like to ride my bike hard and train. And I was getting more into doing the yoga. I felt really good about doing yoga and teaching, helping people. And it was a hard decision to make, but I decided to give up racing and be more full-time with yoga teaching. And I remember there's a very specific moment. I was teaching and looking at this. There's a nice stained glass with a light behind it of a sacred geometry. I was laying down, teaching a closing sequence, and we're doing reclined butterfly. So we got the feet together, the knees open, and I was just looking at that, and I was like, I could keep working on destroying my body, being competitive and doing sports, or I could work on doing this, helping people. And I just, I didn't want to give up what I'd really dedicated to in sports, but I knew it was the right answer. That was, I was starting to get there. It wasn't like a complete shift, but that was a very specific memory that sticks out, knowing that I was like, this is going to be good. This is what I should focus on primarily. And I kept riding for the first several years of no racing. I still rode about as much. And then eventually that became less, but I'm still going out on my bike quite a bit. And it's something I think about all the time, and dream about, go traveling to places and, finding new roads, and then also doing the roads I love locally, and yeah, it's something that's still very special to me, but I do it on my terms. I just, and I kind of get in a meditative and flow state riding, where I go out and, if I'm feeling tired, I just cruise. And then if I get some momentum, then I roll with it. But if I don't, then I don't force it. So I kind of have a little bit of a flow state yogic approach to the sports I do. And, I've always said, and no disrespect to approach yoga as a, more of like a workout type. If that's your thing, then go ahead and do that. But I've always said, you can go to the gym and you can be super mindful while you're lifting your weights, right? And so in a sense, you're doing yoga at the gym. And you can roll out your mat and you can just be like, chaturanga, another push-up, ah! And, you could be doing your workout on your yoga mat. So you can go to the gym on the yoga mat and you can do yoga in the gym. When I'm doing a good ride and in a really good headspace, by myself typically, like it's kind of like a meditation. I try and approach it from kind of a yogic point of view of really emerging with nature and observing my breath and really enjoying that. But the effects on the body is not nearly as good as doing a well-rounded yoga practice, because your back is just always leaning forward, and there's just certain muscles that get way more worked than the others. So it's really good to make sure that all your muscles get toned and that you stretch in all directions, whether it's doing a workout or just getting really in, like you're super into splits, you want to get your splits. Well, that's a very linear way of stretching. You're getting the flexion and extension of the hips. And, you're not doing other openings, internal, external, abduction, adduction, then your hips are going to be limited and possibly compromised. And when the hips are limited and compromised, then it affects your sacrum, right? It affects your sacrum and your lower back. And then that goes all the way up through the body. So, so I'm excited. Next weekend, mark the calendars. We're going to do a little hip opening workshop. Maybe we'll call it the Sacred Sacrum, just to make it a little bit more marketable. I don't know. How does that sound? Does that roll off the tongue nicely? Sacred Sacrum. I definitely used to not treat my sacrum so sacred, as I just described, and it was at the time it was one of the most miserable times in my life, and then it led to really good things, which was interesting. And I think a lot of us have those stories where we went through some epic misery, whether with an injury or a mental struggle or a relationship or a job struggle, perhaps a global struggle, and we learn from it, and can lead to good things and different possibilities. So anyway, we'll go over some things to focus on keeping the sacrum happy in both our hip opening poses and back bends. I'm not sure if we'll do it in the morning. So I'm announcing Sacred Sacrum workshop, but I'm not going to announce the time for another couple of days. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'll post that on all my medias. I'm thinking the afternoon, probably afternoon or early evening, but possibly in the morning, but not as early as these coffee Q&As. So maybe 10:30. But I'll announce that in the next couple of days. It's really nice to have a little bit more understanding of the hips and how it affects the whole body, and to remember to do some of the less favored poses and the less favored directions. My personal opinion is that internal rotation is highly unfavored compared to external rotation, sitting in lotus and butterfly and doing these big side splits and different things, So we'll go over some accessible internal rotation things that should feel really good on your back as well as your hips. And also keep in mind, I'm going to speak from my experience. And I'm very experienced. I've been teaching, and teaching's been my only job since I was 20 years old. But my experience doesn't mean that I know everything, right? Part of my experience is I learned alignments. I see them work for many students. I say, hey, don't bend your knee so far. Oh, okay, I won't. Oh, I'll just bend it above my ankle like you told me. Hey, that feels better. Okay. That's a story I've heard again and again. But then I've also told people, oh, your legs are wide like this. It's not as good for your back bend. And they say, well, I have scoliosis. And actually it hurts when I do the form that most teachers suggest. I go, okay, well, everybody's different. So there's sort of the rules, the strong guidelines, and then there's the exceptions. So I don't want you to take the alignments that I teach or the things that I say as this like rule of law, But if you find yourself instantly dismissing it, maybe keep it around for consideration. Sometimes we instantly dismiss things that are actually perhaps good to think about. Maybe we dismiss it because it's the truth we don't want to hear. But sometimes it just doesn't agree with you. And you're like, okay, well, I'll think about that. But I'm pretty sure that this other method or this other idea is what works for me. And that's part of what I'll go over in the workshop. The different methods and different experiences that people have, like shoulder insertion being wider or deeper, that's going to affect how you approach certain forms and certain poses and the experience you have when you're doing that. Same thing with hip insertion, deep versus open out. People's hips and shoulders are inserted to different levels in their skeleton, and and people's body proportions and injury histories creates a whole unique situation. Whereas the rules tend to be good for, a large amount of people. It's not that way for everyone. So we'll go into different ideas and like exceptions and the rules and stuff like that. And over the years, I've heard a lot of very adamant teachers and then traditions where the strong leader teacher puts the rule down. This is how we do it, and people start to all go along with that. And then that's the teachers of that teacher tell their students, do it this way. And most people don't ask why. You know, anything we teach or look into, we should be willing to investigate. Is that the truth? Is that going to work? It works for me, but is that going to work for everybody? The question why is an excellent question to ask. Even if you're not defying the idea, it's just like, okay, well, explain it to me. Persuade me. Give me a reason to believe what you're teaching me, and also something that I can use to persuade other people. And there's so much of just do it this way in the yoga world, and most people just follow. They're like, well, my teacher told me to do it that way. But why? Do you have an answer? If the answer is no, then that's pretty silly. It's like just walk that way. Well, there's a cliff there. I'm gonna fall off the cliff and die. Well, just walk. Just walk. Be a good lemming or lemur. What are the things that just walk off the cliff? Those lemmings or sheep. There's a lot of that in the world, and I don't want to approach what I'm encouraging people to do with that mentality. Feel free to ask me questions, ask me why, and I'll give you my answer. And if you like the answer, then maybe you keep it as a takeaway. And if you don't like the answer, then you let it go. A lot of people I've learned from, and I've kept things that have been jewels for my teaching and my practice. A lot of their stuff I don't like, but if there's just one thing that's really good, I'm going to keep that gold forever. And that's my hope as a teacher too. Like, it's nice if people like me. I don't specifically want to be disliked, but I also don't care. Like, you don't like me, like, that's okay. Like, you'll find a teacher who you do like, and that'll be good for both of you. But I do want people to at least get one takeaway from any class or any program they do with me, and really hold on to it. And I think I can usually offer that, hopefully, if people are open to it. The whole thing is can you surrender the ego to enjoy something, one thing, even if there's 100 things that you disagree with? Can you enjoy that one thing and remember it, and remember, not have to disassociate who taught it to you, and keep that. Are you humble enough to admit that one person, that one teacher who was an asshole, taught me something that I appreciate forever? That's difficult to do. That's been difficult for me to do, because I've had some teachers who I just thought were fools and assholes. But a couple things they said, I never let go of. Taught many people that, and I applied it to myself in my own practice, and it's been helpful. So that's my hope, that is people are open enough to, if you really, really like me and you like what I have to say, great. If you think I'm just whatever, but you're enjoying, that one thing that I teach, that one thing you learned that you never let go of, or at least you used it for 10 years and it really served you, then that's good. That's a huge win for me, if I can just pass along one thing that really resonates with a student or co-teacher or friend. So, and in life too, like a lot of people I really don't appreciate. I appreciate a little thing I learned from interacting with them in life, whether it's like a relationship or work experience or this, that, or the other. Sorry, I gotta push a little close button here. I think I may have seen a question a while back.
see if there's a question. Maybe it's just a statement. Oh, it's a song. Hips are connected to the backbone. Backbone's connected to the dot dot dot. Yeah, it's like the skeleton song. Like everything's connected. I do think it's funny when we talk about poses. Is like, oh, this is a pose for the shoulders. This is a pose for the hips. Here's a good stretch for your feet, and those are the main areas. But it's like everything's a full body pose. It's like you do up dog, it's a spine stretch, right? Well, what are your hands doing? What are your feet doing? What's your neck doing? What's your core doing? What are your legs doing? Like there's a lot of things happening, even though there's main things happening and then more subtle things happening. So it's like, can you leave your lower body, in the other room while you do that back bend stretch? Or can you have your torso go outside for a cigarette when you're doing a hip opener? Like your whole body is there and your mind is there. Like everything's a comprehensive pose, even if there's target areas, So yeah, it's all connected. And then there's that yoga philosophy of us all being connected. Like right now, we're all connected on social media. That's interesting. Anyway, please feel free to hit me up with a question or mention something. Is there anything you would like to practice? Is there a pose we haven't done in any of the classes that you'd like to do this week? If it's not too advanced, I can probably fit it in. I'm going to wrap up in a little bit, but if there are comments or questions, then let me know. We'll do the Sacred Sacrum workshop a week from today, which will be live and interactive. You can watch it later, but if you watch it live, you can ask questions about specific things and specific poses that will be read to me, and I will address that. We'll see if we can learn together. But yes, not seeing anything come in. Seeing some great old friends I haven't seen in ages, though. That's really cool. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off first on YouTube. So goodbye, YouTube Live. Next Saturday, Sacred Sacrum Workshop. I think that's going to be in April. Wow, we'll be in April, and maybe some better weather than the rain. It's been cold lately too, right? Like February was like 75 degrees every day, and then March has felt more like winter, but at least it's keeping things green. All right, so goodbye, YouTube Live. Definitely love the YouTube people. And signing off from that.